From a small-town girl from Sioux City, Iowa, to starring in a Stephen Sondheim musical on Broadway, her life reads like an MGM musical. And today, she appears on stages all over the country. She's the co-founder of a theater company that, and I'm going to get this right from their website, is dedicated to the development and presentation of unique, brave, and uplifting solo performances that illuminate the human condition.
Brilliant.
Wow, that's heavy stuff. And she's right here in Sarasota. Annie Morrison.
Hi, dear.
Welcome to Suncoast, people.
Thank you. I'm so glad to finally be here. And to finally meet you after all these years.
I know. I feel like I'm just grateful to just wake up in the morning.
Well, we have to have coffee, that's for sure.
I wake up, I have my routine. I wake up, I check my pulse. You know, the bed is dry.
Okay, that's good.
I'm not cold. Get George outside, my dog.
Okay, I hope so.
Get him out quickly. And then the coffee, So you're a coffee drinker?
Oh, hell yeah. I get up in the morning early. I do an hour walk. Then I jump into the pool to do aerobics because I have osteoporosis, which is not good for my age.
Yeah.
And I want to build those bones back up. Then I go and have my coffee. I make sure the cat's fed. Jacket, he's a tuxedo cat. So his real name is I'm a Dinner Jacket.
Okay.
And that's because Jon Stewart, when he was talking about I'm a Dinner Jod, he used to call him I'm a Dinner Jacket. So Jacket was born the same year, so I'm a Dinner Jacket.
I'm a Dinner Jacket.
And then, I have coffee, maybe two. And I like to put butter in my coffee.
I've heard
my
of
son
that.
introduced me to that. It's supposed to help your metabolism first thing in the morning. And now it's the only way I have it. I put
Salted or unsalted butter?
No, unsalted.
Unsalted.
Yeah. Stick it in there and put some cinnamon in there, and I can sip it for quite some time.
See, I like my coffee like I like my coffee. Black. Strong. I was going to say like I like my men. Strong and bitter.
Oh, whoa. Well, there.
But
I guess I like my coffee like I like my somebody else. Anyway,
yeah, we're gonna
buttered up.
We're going to cut that part out, maybe.
I hope not.
Sioux City, Iowa.
Yeah. My parents were college professors.
Okay.
And my dad was teaching at Morningside College in Sioux City, which is a music conservatory. And my mother was a Renaissance woman. She taught modern dance, movement in the theater. She was a dancer, a choreographer, a playwright, a lyricist. She designed hats. She designed plates. My father and her collaborated on 3 ballets, 1 opera, and 3 musicals, art songs, and I thought that was normal. I was born in Sioux City. Yeah, I'm a faculty brat, and I was raised in the theater because they were musical theater people. So my first show, I did a lot of things on television in Sioux City, Iowa, because I used to mimic albums. Musical theater albums, and they put me on there. And then my first real play was at the age of 7. I was a balloon girl in Carnival, and that did it. I knew I was destined for the stage.
Oh, that's wonderful. So we're not going to dwell on Sioux City, but I have to ask.
So I left at 8, so there's no reason to dwell on it much.
No. We're
raised in Chicago, actually.
Raised in Chicago.
I would say I'm more of a shy girl.
Oh, all right. But as far as Sioux City, tell me something people don't know about Sioux City, Iowa.
What they don't know about Sioux City, they don't know that it has an incredible conservatory there. Music conservatory, very talented people. And my father actually has the Morrison scholarship now. Just before he died, actually, they decided to honor a student who had made lots of money. Decided to name a scholarship to students there, but it's a fantastic music school.
And then you moved to Chicago.
Well, actually, we moved to Richmond, Virginia first. Because my father had the opportunity of being head of the music department at the University of Richmond.
Wow.
And was miserable. We were only there for 9 months because he's a teacher.
Yeah.
My father was a combination of Danny Kaye and Victor Borge as a teacher. He was hilarious. It was hilarious. And I remember years later, students still tell me, after they'll be in their 60s, going into their 70s, saying, one of the most influential teachers I had was your father. I had a history student came up to me and he said, you know, I learned more about history with your dad's history of music than anything else. Because in order to learn the history of music, he had to understand what was going politically, what was going on in the social world, what was going on in the art world, what was going on in ballet, what was going on. So you really delved in. He said, I understood history better because of that class. So, yeah.
And today you teach?
Today I teach. My father said, if you're a talented teacher, as long as you're a half an hour ahead of the class, you can teach anything.
Yeah, that's the problem. Too many of my teachers were like 3 weeks behind the class.
Oh,
so
no.
That was
no,
tough.
No.
But,
Yeah, I guess I love to teach, actually. I just came today teaching at Booker High School and Booker Middle School. Because of we'll talk about it more in depth later, but because of our theater company, Sarasota Productions, we're very interested in solo theater development. That's how it got started. I'll go into the history of that in a minute.
Yeah.
But we go into the schools. The high school, we go into the junior program, the junior students. It's a theater department, and they're learning solo theater development. So they're getting, I'm the kind of actor that really believes in honoring my ancestors, the people that came before me. And I'm a big stickler about that you should know the people who came before you. So we're doing appreciation. We're looking at solo playwrights, solo artists, because they're going to have to write their own solo play based on something about their life. But they still need to learn about people who do biographical plays, people who do monopolylogue, that's a mouthful. So that's a monologue, but they're playing different kinds of people, and it's bridged in maybe a theme of some sort. Solo cabaret, which is my expertise. I like to teach cabaret development, or physical theater, or spoken word. And then we allow them to play in those realms and create their own piece, with the idea that they're going to create a larger piece one day, but they do a presentation about 10 minutes of it. And then sometimes students think that 10 minutes is all I need to say in that subject, but now I want to do this. You know? The middle school with Carrie Mills, the high school were with Sunny Smith, who loved solo theater anyway, so she could actually take off on her own with this. Carrie Mills in the middle school, we see her intermediate students, and we have this intergenerational program. So we match, the students are about 12, 13 years old. We match them with 60-plus adults, you know, who are usually people who are retired. And I'm with the students right now teaching them about creative active listening.
Okay, sure.
And how to watch the gesture of somebody, and how to really listen so that the person that they're interviewing feels cared for, felt heard, and respected. Because I don't think we know that anymore when we listen to people. So that's the attempt. Then we'll bring the elders in, and they have a wonderful kind of speed dating in a way. Okay. We'll have the elders sit around the room, and the students will, like a few minutes, go around with each one, and they get to pick their elder that they want. And the student will then interview the elder for about 45 minutes, something about their life. And then the elder will come back and interview the student, and everybody goes off and they write a monologue as the person that they interviewed.
As the other person, yeah.
So it's been, and it becomes this mentorship program.
Sure.
I mean, the elders feel quite bonded. They're scared of talking to teenagers, and the teenagers are scared to talk to an elder that isn't their family member. So it's, but they've developed this wonderful bond and appreciation. It's really quite lovely. And now we've been 5 years with both programs, that this year in the junior program in the high school, we have students that we had the first year in Carrie Mills Middle School. And so they're they already have that skill of having to write a monologue.
Sure.
So it's quite fun.
And there's certainly a lot of self-confidence that's built with these young people,
well,
isn't it?
you know, when Scott Keyes was teaching at the high school, he's since retired, has moved on, he was very teary-eyed the first 2 years when he was there, because he said, I'm learning something about the students I didn't know anything about. You usually come in and you're busy learning a musical, learning this or learning that, but to really get to know the student and their willingness to be brave enough to talk about something in their life. But it's not more than, I said, this is not a TED Talk. You're not in front giving a lecture with a formula that you would have at a TED Talk. Right. Or you're not doing The Moth, where you have to tell a personal story and it has to be truthful. This is theater. You are an actor. So you're telling personal story, but all right, so maybe in the real story, 3 people gave you that information, but maybe theatrically it needs to be in the mouth of 1 person. Things like that, or adding sound, an underscore into something, or maybe there becomes a song comes out of it, or you have multimedia behind you. And nowadays, the kids really get into that. I'll have a cabaret. For me, if I hear ever this next song was written by, I'll shoot you. I don't want that. I'm there to hear you. I want to know about you.
Yeah,
so learning to write patter, which I call the storytelling that leads into a song, just like a musical. So therefore, you don't want what you set up with that song to be the same thing that the song is. The song needs to be your emotional life. And the cool thing about cabaret, you could take it from a musical, but you get your own spin on it. Or maybe you slow it up and make it into a ballad, or maybe you speed it up, or maybe you find that you can do a parody of it because it matches the storytelling of your life that leads into it, or somebody else's life. And it's so much more rewarding, and the kids are really enjoying it. So that now that they're finding that sometimes their patter is spoken word, because they're great poets.
Yeah.
So they're really creating an art form, and I'm very proud of them.
Getting back, and we'll talk more about this. Getting back.
Yeah, I have a habit of going. Just give me a subject and off I go. I'm sorry about that.
I'll be back in about 20 minutes. And no, I'm kidding. This is delightful. But talking about your youth now, that you started in summer stock, yes?
Yeah, and that was my parents.
Okay.
They had started summer stock because they were in a college, and they ended up in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, because George Williams College outside of Chicago, it wasn't Hyde Park, and they moved outside of Chicago, had a campus since like 904 or whatever, up around Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and there was this big, beautiful building, the Lewis Hall. And one of the things that my father was tasked with and loving it was to create the Music by the Lake series. So he was bringing people from all over the world. And then because of my mother's addition to it, then she was bringing like Indira, who's Indira, oh, I can't even think of her name right now. She was an Indian dancer. And they were bringing all kinds of other elements into this program. So they decided to create summer stock theater. The Goodman students that were studying in Chicago, some of them didn't have any place to go in the summertime. So they would come up to Lake Geneva. So we were working with professional actors and college students and various groups coming together to create summer stock.
And then you made a little bit of a shift, and you became a singer with a Korean
family
band.
Well, because of my love for musical theater, at the age of 18, my father would take me down to Chicago, and we would go to the old speakeasies, and we would listen to jazz, and we would listen to cabaret performers and jazz musicians and what have you. And then he accompanied me in one of my first cabaret shows. So I had started young, and I'd gone off to, I got a scholarship to the Boston Conservatory of Music in their first musical theater program. Now this was in 1974, and up until then they didn't have a musical theater program. You learned your theater, you learned your music, you learned your dance, and then when a musical needed to happen, you put it all together. But in 74 is about the time that schools were now creating this kind of a department, and it was rough. Because they hadn't found them footing yet, they hadn't found their language yet, and they had you had the dancers for the dance department, look you up and down, and and the music department was jealous, and it was just weird. So when I got to the Boston Conservatory of Music, I wanted to be challenged more. But so I had developed this love. I called my dad. I said, Dad, I think I'm in the wrong place. He said, are you going to college because your parents are college professors? Because that's a really dumb reason. So his philosophy was, why are you going to school then? Why don't you, for theater, why don't you find another path? And when I tell people nowadays, they're horrified. Your father told you not to go to college? So I left the school and I explored different cities, went back to Chicago, and I discovered that I really wanted to go to New York, But I wanted to study at Herbert Berghoff Studios. I wanted to be with Uta Hagen and Charles Nelson Riley, who was a fantastic teacher. You know, he was that goofy, whoa, funny guy on television, but he was a brilliant teacher.
Yeah, yeah, and brilliant director,
Brilliant director. Oh my God, he was brilliant. What I loved about Herbert Berghoff Studios is that you were working with professionals.
Right.
So you would be, the people in your class were doing it on Broadway.
You were getting practical knowledge.
Sometimes I would lose my teacher for a while.
But practical.
That.
I want to get back to this Korean big band.
That's where I'm next. The next thing I took. I left that school because just before I'd gone, I was in Chicago and I fell in love with this little Korean family that were playing in playing nightclubs, but they were playing in a Chinese restaurant. And I had fallen in love with the second eldest son. And I went off to New York, and they were going to go on the road. Now, their father, Benny Kim, had a Korean name. He was like the Benny Goodman of Korea in his time, and he had to flee Korea because of political reasons.
Right.
Okay. His wife was called Dixie, and she was like the Peggy Lee of Korea. And the kids all quit school to help their dad because he had developed a blockage in his artery, and he was a trumpet player and a sax player, and he was losing his embouchure. He was not, and he was the one who spoke the best English. So he was kind of like the MC. So I'm at the Herbert Berghoff Studios, and I get a phone call. Would you be willing to join the band because your English is so good, and we love your talent? So I left the school and joined the family for like I went up to Canada first. Well, I actually went to visit them up in Canada, and they decided that I should do this. For 2 years, I was on the road singing with a Korean family.
But you also did more than sing with them.
Oh, I was the MC.
Well, you also played the trombone.
Well, that's interesting because, well, here's the thing.
Did my homework.
Their English was terrible, you know, and being there helped them a lot. And I had to learn Korean. To at least the alphabet, so I could phonetically write out for Mrs. Kim, so she could pronounce, because she would get out there and sing, "Take the living from my hay, run it roo, run it far, if me tray tonight." You know, so I had to kind of help them. The kids were singing, you know, because they would do, you know, rock stuff too, and they go, "Can't get it up. I'm a honky, stop. Can't get it up." I said, guys, I can't get enough of that funky stuff. So I really had to help, you know. Eddie's the eldest son's daughter, or his wife, excuse me, his wife, loved musical theater, and she'd go, "Hello, Derry, well, hello, Derry," you know, so I really needed to be there. And I convinced them that they should sing a Korean folk song and jazz it up to start off the show, you know. So, and I'm probably, after all these years, I'm singing it incorrectly, but we go, "Hey, kung kang sangi manicha momaraki hamiyo, halasan do pa, soksei do na kuna," and it was just crazy. But I had so much fun with them.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but I learned a really cool lesson. Once they decided we were doing this Andrews Sisters number, and they thought, wouldn't it be fun if you guys could just pick up an instrument and play? So they thought, you know, we'll give you a valve trombone because you're going to be dancing along while doing this, you know.
Oh, and that's easy with a valve trombone.
Yeah, you know, just, you know,
why don't you just pick up a bass fiddle and dance with
you know. We're going to teach you these valves and what pitches to blow. You practice in the afternoon, you go in the evening. So the lesson that I learned is, as long as you don't know you can't do something, you can do anything. I didn't know I couldn't play. I didn't know, you know.
I'm doing this.
Right, hello. So I picked up the trombone. Oh, that's what you do. You do it. You went out. I had to join the music union. But I only knew the songs that they taught me the pitches to blow. You know, I had to play Satin Doll on a trombone, the harmony part, and I had to join the union. Crazy.
Oh my God.
So that was a valuable lesson. I also, because I was the MC, that was when I really learned how to break the fourth wall very comfortably, and to talk to an audience and be able to engage in their eyes and not have that fear, which is where I really developed a love for solo theater. Because in solo theater, you don't have your scene partner on stage with you. Your audience has to become your scene partner. And when you can really develop that relationship, then when you're back in a play with another actor, I can't explain it, but you're better. You're better with your scene partner on stage because of this relationship you have with the audience. And you're aware in a different way that makes you a better storyteller. It's the only way I can describe it.
And on that note, we're going to take a pause.
Okay.
Because this is a two-parter with Annie Morrison, because we haven't even begun to scratch the surface. So we're going to take a break, and I look forward to you clicking on part 2 of Annie Morrison's interview.
Yeah, because the good stuff's coming.
It sure is. Don't miss out. Click on part 2. Part 2 of my conversation with Annie Morrison launches on November 9th. So bookmark this page, like us on Facebook, and stay tuned. Suncoast People depends on people like you. If you like what we're doing, consider supporting us through patreon.com/Suncoast People. And thanks for watching.